Player feedback can make or break your game. Even the best mechanics can't save a game if players don't understand what they're looking for or what they can do. In this Unreal Engine 5 mini-series, we're going to create a simple outline of objects that lets players know how they can interact with those objects or items. Along the way, we'll cover clean blueprint practices, actor components, blueprint interfaces, post-process materials, and non-HUD widgets. In this video, we'll build a contextual interaction widget, attach it to our parent, and use blueprint interfaces to pass object-specific information onto the widget at runtime. My name is Neil with Crustaceous Studios. Let's dive on in. So in the original example, I also showed that we had a pop-up of what the item is and a prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and run through that real quickly. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close all of these. So that way I have some room. I don't need this interaction line trace anymore. I don't need that, but we are going to keep our interaction parent open. So we want to set up a few things here first. We're going to create a few variables because we know we're going to want the name of the object, and maybe we're going to want the color for the text of the object when we display that. And then we're also going to want the action command. So whether it's like pick up or eat or smash, we want to be able to control that as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So under variables, we'll hit the little plus sign. I'm going to call this name. We're going to make this text. We're going to make that instance editable. I'm going to copy this so that way we have a duplicate that's already a text. I'm going to call this item command. Actually, let's call this action command. Action command. And then we want to create another one here that's going to be text color. And we want this to be a slate brush. And I'll explain why here in just a second. Okay. And then for organization, let's go ahead and group this. So we're going to call this interaction info. And make sure that they're all instance editable. Now I want to come over back to our main folder. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Widgets. Then I'm going to come here and I'm going to right click and head down to user interface. And I want to create a widget blueprint. So this is going to pop up. We're just going to say user widget. Now I do WBP for widget blueprint. And I'm going to call this, we'll do interaction info. Let's do interaction prompt instead. So let's go ahead and open this up. So this is our widget canvas. And we're going to just do a couple of things here. So the first thing I want to be able to grab is a border. Then I want to grab a horizontal box. And then inside this horizontal box, I'm going to grab a text. And then I'm just going to duplicate that 2 more times. So I want this to fill everything. Actually, I want this to be center, center. And then I'm just going to say desired on screen. That's going to make things easier. So for this first one, I'm going to rename this. And this is my naming convention just so that I can be able to see and understand things. I'm going to name it what I want this to be. So this is going to be the button prompt. And then I do underscore text. So that way I know what it is when I go to do the, when I look at it as a variable. Then I'm going to rename this. I'm going to say the action prompt. and then underscore text. And then this last one is going to be the item name underscore text. So for these first two, I want them to be variables. So we're going to do that. Now, what we need to do is we need to set this up. So we'll just fill in some blank information here. Let's do E, because we'll make that our E key. And then here we'll have just a default of pickup. And then here we'll just put item name. We can't see anything right now because our border is set, so let's make some adjustments on our border. We'll click brush. We'll come down to brush color. We'll make it black. And I like to give it just some transparency. And then I want to do a little bit different. Instead of an image, I'm going to say rounded box, because I feel like that's going to look a lot nicer. Now our pickup and item name, everything is really close to each other. So let's go ahead and adjust our padding here. I'm going to say 5. So there's 5 on everything. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to come back to our interaction parent, look at our viewport, and we're going to say add. I'm going to say widget, and I'm going to call this our pickup widget. Actually, let's call this our interaction prompt widget. That way we know that it's going to let us know exactly what this does. So we'll come down here and find our information. We don't want it to be world space. We're going to make it screen. And then the widget class is going to be, if we type in WBP, we'll get all of our WBPs here, and we'll say interaction prompt. So one thing that you'll also want to make sure is you'll want to come over here and say draw at desired size. Because otherwise, if we come over here and we take a quick glance by clicking on world, we're going to see how big this looks, because it's drawing this by this pixel size. So we have our X and our Y. So like if we drop this down to 250, we can see how it changes. But if we come here and we say draw at desired size, it's going to match the size that we have set up here. But I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to add a little bit of padding back to this. I'm going to say 4,2. So that way we have just a little bit of space here, and that's going to fit a little bit more nicely. So if I come back here to screen, and I say compile, save, and I come and take a look, we can see now everything is showing up where it's supposed to be in our world and in the shape that we want. But we only want these to appear when we look at them. So back in our interaction widget, we're going to come here and we're going to set the visibility to this as off. So you'll see if we go and play, we don't see them anymore. And if we come up to them, nothing happens. So in our code, we want to turn these on. So we'll just come and drag our interaction prompt widget. We'll drag off and say set visibility. We'll set new visibility to true. And then we'll duplicate it. We'll set it to false, which means off. And we hit compile, we hit save, then we play. Now, when we look at something, we'll see it pop up. Pick up item name. Perfect. Now all that's left is for us to connect everything. So that way it'll say pickup and then the actual item name, or if we want to change what it says for pickup, we can then change whatever that command is. So we're going to create another interface for this. So if we come to our interface folder, we right click, again we come to blueprint, blueprint interface, BPI for blueprint interface, and I'm going to call this our interactable prompt interface. And this is going to take in more than just calling a command. So we'll call this one, we're going to say set item name. And this we want to be able to take in our text. So I'm going to say name and then set this to text. So this is going to receive a name when we call this from inside of our blueprint here. So we're going to set this on begin play. But we need to do a couple other functions here, and this one is going to be set action prompt. We're going to create an input. We're going to call this prompt. And then we're going to want to do one more, which is going to be set color. And we're going to actually want to make this a slate color. So I had said slate brush earlier, but that's incorrect. So I apologize. We're going to say slate color. And we'll update that here in just a second. Now we want to make sure we come back to our widget blueprint. And if we click on graph and come over to class settings, instead of it showing up over here for widgets, it's going to show up on the left-hand side, just like we did with our interactable parent. We are going to scroll down to interfaces, add, we'll type in our BPI, and then we have our interactable prompt interface. This is a different interface that came in this template. And actually, I'm going to change the name just so that it's a little bit easier. So instead of interactable prompt interface, which I also spelled, I'm going to just call this interact. We'll just call it prompt interface. Prompt interface for now. I think that's okay for now. So back in here, implement interface BPI, our prompt interface. So again, we get all of our different prompts here. So as you see here, we have our different interface functions. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say set item name. We'll grab our item name text. We'll get that, and then we'll say set text. And then we just plug that in right there. Next thing we'll do is set our action prompt. We'll get our action prompt text. We'll say set text. We'll plug that in here. Lastly, now we're going to grab our set color. And we'll make a copy of our item name text. And we're going to say set color and opacity. And since these are the same, we'll plug this in here. Right there. Perfect. So now we're able to have everything set up the correct way. Now, we're not quite done yet. So if we come back to our interact parent, we have our variables here, and we want to set this on the beginning of begin to play. So this is going to be relatively simple. So let's drag our begin play up. So now what we need to do is we just need to grab a couple of things here. So in order to get this widget so that way we can call it, we need to drag out our interaction prompt widget. We'll say get widget. And from here, since we know that this widget is our WBP interaction prompt, we can just say, we can store this as a variable if we really want to. So, or we can just do a set item name, and then we just drag our name and drop it in here. Then we can duplicate this again, and we can say set action prompt, and we'll put our action command in here. And then we can copy this one more time. And then we'll say set color. And since we made this a slate brush, it won't connect. So we just have to then change this back to a slate color. Compile. And then this will connect just fine. So now when we come to, let's just set some default values actually. So now I'm going to make sure we have some default values set up here. So for name, I'm just going to put in all caps item name. So that way we'll know that, oh, we forgot to set this if we see this. For action command, I'll do the same. I'll just say action command. So it's obvious that, oh, we mistaken something. And then for the color, I'll just leave the default color as white. So if we come here and we take a look, we'll see when it pops up, everything shows up like that. So you see action command item name. So all we have to do now is if we come over here to our, for instance, our BP burger, we can then update this to burger. And I don't know why it separated these. That's funny. We'll say eat. And then for the color, let's just make this yellow. Compile, save. Actually, let's just make sure. Yeah, that should all be the same. Then for the soda, we'll say soda. And we'll mark this as drink. And then we'll just make this blue. Compile, save. And then our tomato, we'll say pick up tomato for this one. Or actually, we want this to say tomato. And then for this here, we'll say pick up. And then we'll make this red just because tomatoes are red. So now when we pop in and we play test, this will now reflect the correct thing. So if I hover over the tomato, we have pick up tomato and the tomato is in red. When I hover over the drink, it's being highlighted. We say drink soda, and then this last one, eat burger. So that's how we can be able to modify and set that up. One last thing I might want to do here is if I come over here to the viewport on, for instance, the burger, if I say open full editor, viewport, bring the interaction widget up just a little bit because it's set to 0, 0. So I'll bring that up to about there, compile. Do the same for the soda because I think I want the soda prompt to show up right in the middle. So let's just bring this up right where the label would be. Same thing with tomato. Just increase it just a little bit more. So that way it just looks a little bit nicer. So now when I highlight it, it's centered, eat burger. When I highlight the soda, boom, drink soda, pick up tomato. So the last thing I want to show you now is being able to add some interaction to this, which is really simple to do. We're not going to go into creating an inventory system. We're just going to add the basic kind of setup so that we can start to interact. Save this. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Since Unreal uses the advanced input system, what we need to do is we need to come over to our content folder, look at input, and we're going to take a look at our input mapping context default. We're going to open that up. And under default mappings, we have this IA jump, move, and look. So that means we need to add a new mapping context. So if we come over, click on our actions, we'll right click, we'll come to input, we'll say new input action, we'll say IA for input action, and we'll just call this one interact. If we open this up, make sure everything is fine, it's set to bool, which is great. Save it, close. Now back in our input mapping context, we'll just add, and then we'll see our IA interact. And then we'll set this to E since we have it programmed right now to our display shows E. So you can either search for it by clicking this here and saying E, which can cause you to have to go through everything, or a nice little feature that they added is if you just click the keyboard, it's now listening to whatever you press. So if I now press E, it's automatically going to fill that spot. So it's perfect. Now we need to head over to our player character. So first person, blueprints, first person character. And we need to add our command here. So in order to do this, we're going to right click. We're going to say IA underscore interact. Now we want to do the same thing that we've been doing here to where when we press this, it sends a message, because we want all of our code that involves our items to exist within our items. We don't want our first person character to do anything that it has to do, if that makes any sense. So this shouldn't be running code that tells our interaction items what to do. That should be handling itself. So we just need to come back to our interfaces. We'll look at our interactable interface. And we just want to add a new interaction. So we'll say add new function. And we'll just call this interact. And for this, I'm going to add an input. We may not use it right away, but this can be helpful so that way information is being passed along into the item, and that's going to be the instigator. So we're going to look at we're going to type in instigator, and then this is just going to be an actor, because it doesn't need to be anything specific. We just want to know what might be sending this input. So now if we come back to our interaction parent, we look at our event graph, we can see we now have under interfaces our interact function. So let's go ahead and do that. And then here for right now, we're just going to say destroy the actor. So this is where you'd want to put any of your other code. But for purposes of this, we're just going to destroy it. So this is where you would have your inventory system set up, or your code for if it's like a lever on what it would do if it was a lever. So we'll come back to our first person. On here, we just do a simple message here, and we say interact message. Now our target, because right now we don't know what it is we grab our interact line trace, and then we look for our hit actor, because that's the actor we're currently on, and that's our target. And then our instigator is just going to be a reference to ourselves, because we are the ones that are instigating this. So if, again, we want to, we can be able to get whatever code that we need to get from this. So for instance, if I wanted to then nullify what the hit actor is, I could come here and I could say get component by class, and then I could look for AC underscore interaction line trace. I could see if this is valid. And if it is valid, we're going to set hit actor to nothing. But the way we currently have our line trace set up is as soon as it sees nothing, it will automatically set itself to nothing. But if we didn't have that set up, we could go about it this way. We could also be able to grab anything else. So for instance, if we had another widget that notifies the player, hey, this item has been added to your inventory, we could be able to do that and grab that this way. So that's kind of the benefit of having this instigator on the interact, is that we can then be able to send information back to where we need to go. Again, this is running code for something else. So this would kind of be like an edge case scenario, or if we're like, okay, we want to run specifically something that is within that class, we can, or just to check to see if this is valid, because maybe we want to destroy it, maybe we want to change it. But for right now, we don't need to do this. But that's kind of the benefit of having the instigator. But if we come here and test this now, if I come over here, we see everything pops up, and if I hit E, it gets destroyed. So drink soda, and everything is gone. So that is how we can be able to set up a line trace interaction system using components, having a post-process outline, and being able to interact with those objects. And that's going to wrap everything up. With this system, you can now clearly communicate to your player what objects and items they can interact with, elevating your player experience for your games. I really do appreciate all of you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more series just like this one, and leave a comment down below about what you're making. I want to hear about your projects. As always, happy developing.